Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you very much, Amna, first of all, for the lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be here and for this wonderful collaboration that we are doing today with our amazing panel of speakers that we have tonight. Before we move on to our discussion, there is something that I would like to share with all of you that women make up half the world's population. An increasing number of women are entering the workforce every year. However, from being recruited to earning promotions, women face barriers throughout the workplace. In spite of the discussions about diversity and inclusion in organizations, women in leadership roles are still in minority. They receive fewer opportunities than their male counterparts to show their full potential and have to work harder and prove themselves repeatedly as they work their way up to senior positions. And for this very purpose, we have invited two wonderful speakers tonight who have joined us from Berlin and from Abu Dhabi. I would like to introduce Ida Halter, who is the co-head of IOME Private Investment Office. And we have Claudinia Harper, who's joined us from Abu Dhabi. She's the Regional Inclusion Advisor. Thank you very much for being here tonight and for being part of this amazing forum. We will be discussing questions, we'll be discussing ideas, we'll have a lot of questions for our audience. And we hope that we are able to cover everything. If you have any questions, as Amna has said, that we would like to see them in the chat box, we'll be addressing them at the end of our session, and we'll be happy to answer them. So to begin with, thank you very much, Claudinia and Ida, for being here. And I think you can unmute yourselves. I'd like to begin the session with Claudinia tonight. That first of all, you look gorgeous. And I'm so glad that it was so wonderful that we had a chance to do a session together earlier in Dubai, and I had the chance of meeting you there, and never knew that we are going to end up doing something like this so phenomenal in the future. Now, Claudinia, your background is from diversity and inclusion into HR. You are also a strategic leader in HR, OD, and leadership development. So my first question for you is that, what does diversity and inclusion look like in a workplace? And what are the trends that are currently there in the Middle East market? You do know that we are doing this program with Pakistan, so if you have any insight to share on that as well. So please, could you elaborate on it?
Hi everyone. Thank you, Amna, and thank you, Hira, for those lovely introductions. And hi to everyone on the call. I'm so excited to be here and to have this conversation with all of you. Diversity and inclusion and women empowerment specifically are topics that are so close to my heart. So I'm so excited to be able to engage on it. So at a very high level, diversity and inclusion, the fact that it's still so common for there to be blurred lines between these and for people not to be able to articulate the meaning of the terms is actually mind-boggling to me in the light of the research and the evidence that shows that diversity and inclusion in the workplace causes results in more employee engagement, better performance, and higher profits for organizations. But I'm very happy to create some shared understanding on this call. So firstly, diversity focuses on the makeup of your workforce. So to what extent are the population demographics of the country or the region that you're operating in reflected in your workplace in terms of gender, race and ethnicity, age, physical ability or mental ability, sexual orientation and sexual identity, etc., religion, just to name a few. There are many.
Right.
So to what extent are those numbers reflected in your workforce? And then inclusion is the extent to which the diversity in your workplace, those people that make up the diversity of all these different characteristics and unique identifiers, to what extent do they feel that they are welcome, that they are valued, and that they have a unique opportunity to contribute to the
Absolutely.
performance of the organization. So the one is about numbers, and the other one is about feeling welcome and belonging and having a voice and being able to contribute. Very importantly, a very important component of having an inclusive workplace is you can't have all of those outcomes of people feeling like they're safe and comfortable, that they belong, that they have a voice, without respect. So the foundation of an inclusive workplace is respect. Everything starts from there. So the concept of respect is the foundation of any inclusive workplace. So in the interest of time, knowing that we don't have a lot of time, I focused on a kind of snapshot of where we are with diversity inclusion in the Pakistan market. And there's a 2020 report, the Global Gender Gap Report, from the World Economic Forum, and it currently ranks Pakistan third last in terms of economic participation and opportunity for women, which is very concerning. This is despite significant growth in Pakistan of the participation of women. So it gives you a sense of how much work has been done and how much still has to be done. So Hira, you mentioned earlier that women make up, half of the population. So in Pakistan, women currently make up 49% of the population, but in the employment market, the participation rate for women is significantly low. It's around 24%. 24% compared to 49%.
I think, Claudinia, you were talking about 24% in the last one that I picked up from the World Bank collection. It was at somewhere at 20.53% this year for the labor force participation, which is quite low. And when I tried to look up the numbers for leadership positions, there actually wasn't much data available on that, unfortunately.
So, no, there isn't much data, but from 2018, there's a report from 2017 to 2018, which is a report that surveyed over 500 of the listed corporations on the Pakistan Stock Exchange. And of those 500, I think it was 550 organizations, for every 9 male directors, so we're looking at senior positions now, for every 9 male directors, there was only 1 female director.
Wow.
So that wasn't too long ago. That was 2018. So that gives you a sense that even though it's already low across the general workforce, that there's only 24% or 20 to 24% participation, but at that senior level, literally only 1 in 9 of directors are female. So there's lots of work to do. And, I think that is such a missed opportunity. The impact on the market is significant when you consider the fact that again, a huge body of evidence that gender equality is documented. It's an empirically based strategy for improving corporate performance. In other words, organizations that have a high level of diversity in terms of gender equity, they perform better. This is across across countries, across cultures. It is very clear that when you have more women at leadership levels, your organization performs better in terms of faster and more effective decision making, greater levels of innovation.
Hello, Claudinia, are you still with us? Amna, can you see Claudinia, or is it my end? I can still see you.
Yeah, I
think we've lost her for a moment. Hi, Claudinia. Sorry, we lost you for a moment there. I think there was a bit of a lapse. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, there's all this evidence that having gender equality, especially at senior levels, results in better performance and higher profits. So the Pakistan market and the employment market in general is missing out on vital performance and growth in these organizations because they either don't see diversity and inclusion as a business priority, or they see it as a marketing gimmick, like we practice diversity and inclusion, but not really in practice when you go into the organization. It's sometimes also viewed as a policy compliance issue. So in other words, it's either legally mandated by the government, or in the organization we've said we have to do this. So we put a policy in place and we say that we do it and we tick the box. Or there's a quota system that we need to meet. So we have a certain amount of women, we have the minimum amount in place. we have them at the lowest possible levels, and we meet the quota. What is required for organizations to maximize the opportunity and the benefit that we can get from having gender equity and diversity is to take a good long look at the evidence, because there are so many studies, there's so many reports, so much research that's been done on this, on actual organizations operating right now, that shows that if you leverage it, it's a powerful tool to actually achieve your strategic goals, to meet your performance targets. Not something you do in addition to business. It's a way. It's a way to actually achieve your performance targets. And I think that's what's missing in the employment market right now.
Thank you, Claudinia. I think I loved where you picked up how it's affected all those companies that have managed to have the inclusion of women and of other minorities as well. What a change it brings. And, highlighting these positive aspects is very important for people to understand how important this aspect is, this inclusion aspect is. And while we are talking about these gaps, I would like to ask you, Ida, over here, that how is the best way? I mean, we were talking about success yesterday. What is success, and how do we cover this gap that we have currently, that we can help women cover this gap faster? Sorry, Ida, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry for that. So hello, everybody. So I think the first thing is your definition of success, and what are you spend your life with or achieving. And if it is money and power and influence, I think then you miss a certain point. So for myself, I live after what Churchill said. So success for me is a row of failures, and I try not to lose my enthusiasm to continue learning. So the thing is kind of, it's not just, also if you want to be successful to impress other people, like it's the same, if you dress up to impress others, or if you dress up because you feel good, you do it for yourself, there's a high difference. Because if you dress up for others to impress them, you might dress in a way which is not you. So you might have a shorter skirt or a longer skirt, so it's not you. So and there you start losing yourself. And I think you have to sit back and really think, what is success for you? So success is, it's really, for me, it's liking what you do, liking the way you do it, and also do your level best. So you try to be the best version of yourself, and you try to get the best of your abilities out there. And also success is that you position yourself where you can succeed. So for example, if you are not good in math and you want to be the top leading Nobel Prize winner of mathematics, I can tell you, you will fail. So it's kind of, you have to really sit back and have a good assessment of yourself. And the assessment doesn't mean to limit yourself in growth. So you always have to try to develop yourself. So for example, if you say, so I might have not good examples, but for example, if you say you cannot bake a bread, I think you can make this statement only if you have tried at least 30 times to make a bread. If you can't, if you then after 30 times say, I'm just not wired to bake bread, then I can accept it. But to tell me, I tried it once, it didn't work. So maybe you just had the wrong ingredients, or whatever was wrong, or you had talk to people who can bake bread, try it 30 times, and then you can make a statement that you can't do it. It's for a lot of stuff where especially women try to be perfectionists. So the success is not to be perfect. Success is to put your aim and achieve your aim. So it might be that for somebody, running in a certain pace, a certain distance, they said, oh, you're really slow. But if you put your goal and you said, I achieved my goal, and this is what I wanted to achieve, and I'm so proud of myself, so then it is success. So success is a matter of perspective, I think. And if you have the wrong perspective and you start at the wrong point with the wrong expectations towards yourself, and if you want to succeed to be more accepted, socially accepted by others, and to go up a certain rank, I think then you put yourself wrong. So I would take really a step back with that.
Ida, I really enjoyed this aspect. I wanted to go to Claudinia for the next question, but I'm going to stay with you for a moment, because you said row of failures, and it just clicked to me, because that's one thing that we so associate or disassociate actually with success, and we feel that is an area I can just not go into because I would categorize myself as an unsuccessful person. So I want to know that what is the importance of failure? You've already highlighted that, but what is the role that it's really playing, and how do we not fear this aspect?
I think what I teach my girls is that there is not success and failure, but failure is an integral part of success. You know, it's at one point we stop accepting that you failed several times before you're good at something. You know, we accept it with a child which starts walking. You know,
Yeah.
Nobody said, oh my God, you know, she has or he has fallen, so he will never manage. Everybody expects that it takes a certain time until they manage the process. You know, and this is I think the attitude is you have to accept a certain time until you manage a process, but you also have not to be frustrated if you hit your ceiling. You know, don't beat yourself up. You know, if you want to be something, or if you want to achieve something, and you give your level best and you dedicate yourself and make the right choice to dedicate yourself to the right thing. So not to, you know, this is one of my examples I have with my girls. You know, I say, you know, if you are 1.60 meters and you're slightly overweight, you know, you could try to be a good model, but you know, the way to do this, so until you come to a level where you can even dream about being a candidate for a model, is hard. If you make the conscious decision to do that, that's fine. If you have the discipline to do that and the work ethics, that's fine. But the thing is, you might waste your time because you might be a super mathematician. So, and then the next question is, why do you want to be a model? Because your self-confidence is low and you want other people to tell you that you are beautiful? Or is there really something in for you? So you have to be the success, if it is to boost up your acceptance in a certain environment. That cannot be the motivation, that is the result. So if you're really good in something and people start admiring you for something, you have done something, that's okay, but you cannot live on that. So, you know, compliments are fine, but compliments are not something you should you should not live on it. And also the question is, who is giving you the compliments? There are some people in my life, if they would tell me, you know what, this was a fantastic talk, I would be really proud. And there are some people, I wouldn't care so much about the compliment because I know, you know, they're
not so genuine.
It's not genuine. So it's all the matter of self-perspective, and failure is for me learning. So you have to put another word to it. You have to rewire yourself to failure. It's like in some failure you accept, interestingly, and some failure this is a big drama. And often the big drama is when the failure is you expose yourself to the failure. So, you know, nobody has a kind of if you fail at home, nobody makes a big thing out of it. But if you fail in public, then it becomes suddenly more important. So you have to, your self-confidence determine how important that is. So it starts all with yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because failure, it puts the toughest question in your face, because we have a tendency to shift blames. And here we have to question ourselves really, that what is it that we need to correct about ourselves or fix or alter. And here, Claudine, I have a question for you, that when we are talking about habits, when we are talking about, you know, things that we need to alter, are there any particular traits or habits that you associate with successful women?
Yes. So in thinking about this, there are so many different frameworks for effective leadership out there and for women in leadership. But what I found over the years is that if you really distill the principles, what works for women is really a leadership framework that applies to everyone. That said, there are certain considerations for us as women in terms of how we apply principles or measures of success in leadership that we really need to bear in mind. So a framework that really resonates with me was articulated by Mary Ann Bruce. She's an experienced corporate director, former Fortune 100 president and CEO. She's one of the women leaders that I follow on Twitter to inspire and motivate myself. And she distilled these 8 factors that when translated into behaviors make women leaders successful. Again, this applies to all leaders, so it has value to our participants on this call that are men as well, but there are considerations in the application that is unique to female leaders. And I apologize, I actually had a slide for these 8 points and it got corrupted, but I'm happy to provide that to Hera after the session so she can share it with you and with Anna. So first of all, in terms of how we show up in the world, authenticity is one of the most powerful behaviors and habits that make us successful as leaders. Now, this again applies to men and women, but as women, we have unique value to add, and we often underestimate this. So we hold back certain aspects of ourselves because we think, oh, that's a very feminine trait, and that doesn't have a place in the workplace, and that's not corporate enough. But women in leadership positions are every bit as effective as men. There's actual research, again, I'm very evidence-based, and there's actual research that shows this. So we need to step into that authenticity and be real, because people pick up on that, and that makes leaders effective. People pick up on fakeness in a heartbeat. The other one is courage. We need to embrace change. We need to dare to be different and take a few risks. Now, again, as women, we tend to, and I'm generalizing, be a little risk averse. And we take less risk, generally speaking, than men tend to do. But there's lost opportunity there. Outside of our comfort zone, there's growth. So I want to encourage everyone on this call to push past what's uncomfortable and see the potential, because in that courage is where success as a female leader often sits.
Claudinia, sorry, I just want to go back. When you said feminine traits, can you give me 1 or 2 examples so that people can understand better when we talk about these feminine traits, so that if they want to alter it, they want to see what those are actually? Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, this is not comprehensive and a full list, but there are certain things that women, that come more naturally to women. And in all of these things, I'm generalizing. I understand that people display these characteristics to various degrees, but in general, the research will show that women, in terms of characteristics in leadership, there are certain things that we do by virtue of how we're socialized and by virtue of the behaviors that we do habitually. And some of these things are, in terms of emotional maturity, we're very focused on other people and their needs. Women tend to be conscious of their own limitations, and that brings an element of humility. With the emotional maturity and the care for others, we often put people ahead of ourselves. And we know that in terms of successful leadership, servant leadership is one of the most successful approaches to leadership. So we lead by going alongside people, not sitting on top of them. And that's been proven to be more successful. The ability to demonstrate empathy, to communicate by making connections with people as opposed to talking to people and down to people, is a very uniquely feminine trait, or a feminine strength, really.
Right.
Women tend to focus on elevating others as well, and women tend to motivate through transformation rather than command and control styles. Again, this is probably not innate, but a way that we are socialized. So we need to lean into these things. And by the way, again, this is backed up by research. I'm not just spouting this. So we need to lean into those things. They need to show up in our authenticity instead of hiding it and saying, well, when I'm in the boardroom or when I'm in the management meeting, then I'm a certain way and I hold back those aspects of myself. These are aspects of women that have been proven to lead to successful outcomes as leaders. So we should be leaning into that authenticity.
Right. Thank you very much for pointing these traits out so we can better understand, look ourselves deeply into ourselves, and understand what our traits are so we can alter and grow accordingly. You mentioned comfort zone, and I want to ask Claudinia about this. That comfort zone is associated with growth. And I would like to know what is the importance of leaving one's comfort zone for this growth and development to happen.
Is this for me? Sorry.
This is for Ida.
Okay. Oh, for me. Okay. So I think first, again, you have to take a step back and find out what your comfort zone is. And I think the important thing is not just your comfort zone, but the comfort zone of other people. So it is, it could be that your comfort zone is actually not your own comfort zone, but the comfort zone set upon you by culture, family, whoever. So you need to find out what is your real comfort zone and what is kind of going into your comfort zone. And some especially, when it comes to emotional relationships with family, a lot of, and I do this myself. So obviously I respect the comfort zone of my parents, and I kind of squeeze my comfort zone a little bit because I know they would be upset if I would do certain things, which has gone down over the age. But there's an emotional comfort zone, and I'm quite aware for which people I limit my own comfort zone because I don't want to step somebody's toes, but I do this thing consciously. And the thing is, if you have this comfort zone in the middle, and for example, my social, cultural, maybe your economic comfort zone, you might be, your comfort zone economically might be something where you are struggling because you're not comfortable with what you earn. So your economic comfort zone can actually really impact your emotional comfort zone. Of course, you're busy in finding out how you financially are sustainable. So, but the comfort zone is actually not the thing you should look at. It is actually the zone around the comfort zone, which is kind of the growth zone. So you have to grow your comfort zone, and sometimes you have to make a conscious decision that you grow your comfort zone on the cost of other people's comfort zone. So one example, you are determined to become a doctor. You parents rather think you should marry and raise the next generation. So you can do two things. You can fight for your comfort zone, meaning you step on your parents' toes. And the question is not only that you do it, the question is also how you do it. It's like, you could go back and say to your parents, you know what, you shut up, I don't listen to you. I might have my own money, I don't care what you think. Or you might go and try to grow your parents' comfort zone so that at one point they might be comfortable with you not going their kind in the route of your parents' comfort zone, meaning we want our daughter to be a mother. So that is their comfort zone, that is their life. And also the respect for people's comfort zone makes you a trait which is important for leaders. And Claudinia said it, this is empathy. If you cannot put yourself in other people's comfort zones, you won't understand. It's the same if you have a boss who bullies you. Actually, bullying is an aggressive form of fighting for his comfort zone. So, people who bully have a comfort zone, they defend aggressively. That is nothing than a very aggressive defense of their comfort zone because they feel comfortable in bullying people. So so if you have so first be aware of other people's comfort zone, which is a very good training field because then you can increase your empathetic abilities. You know the comfort zone of your children. There are some comfort zones we are very aware of. Your children, they show you with their face that they are kind of anxious to try something, and immediately you help them to try something out. You let them taste a bit of spice or whatever makes them uncomfortable. You help them in a comforting way that they grow, and you have to do the thing for yourself. So you have to have your learning zone where you say, I want to leave my comfort zone, and if I leave my comfort zone, this will hurt the comfort zone of the person XYZ. And the question is, are you doing it, and how you are doing it? And there are a lot of women out there who say, I respect the comfort zone of my parents and I don't want to hurt them, and that is their decision. But sometimes it is they give up too early because you might want to sit down with your parents and you might want to increase their comfort zone, because by increasing their comfort zone, you limit their panic zone, which might be your comfort zone. So it's like it's an
Absolutely.
and we live in a
Absolutely.
social. We are not alone. We live in a social setting, and some women left their country and their family because they said, you know, I don't accept. Not just women, also men. I don't accept the boundaries set by others, and this is not what I want to be. This is not what I can be in my life, and they limit my growth by their comfort zone. And I need to find another. I need to find another people. I need to find another country. I need to find another whatever. As long as the decision is conscious, I'm fine with everything.
Claudinia, this is so important because just when the webinar was about to start, we were having a conversation on exactly this thing when you said other people's comfort zone. And this is, again, such a cultural thing that happens in Pakistan, that it's not just the immediate family, but it's the connected family, and they have a lot of say in your life. Why do you want to do such and such a thing? You will eventually get married. You'll be making, flatbread and raising kids. So they really, a lot of women have to fight this at their family, at their home front, and they have to work very hard to convince their family members of why they want to, have the idea of taking their career forward, and they want to invest in it and spend some time in that. So this is so important, and I think that you've answered it so well, that working around other people's comfort zones, that too. And what about setting your boundaries and pushing that? When I say setting the boundaries, sorry, I'll just rephrase it. Pushing other people's opinions out of that. When you set your own boundaries, it's a tough fight.
So it's again, fight is a sort of aggression, and sometimes you need to be aggressive in a let me say, in an effective way. So if you know who you are and what you want to do, so you have a goal, and then you know what it takes you to get this goal. So gets back to this example of you want to study medicine. So obviously, if you want to study medicine, you need a certain financial independence. You need good grades. You need and then you need to find out. And this is the other thing with your comfort zone. Then you need to find out how depending are you on other people's approval. There's a certain self-confidence where this other people's approval is not important for you because they can't give it because they are not able to give it to you. So it's for example, if my father would be very conservative and he's just not, and this is the empathy thing, because it makes it easier for you to give this up, because if your father is very conservative and in his life a working woman is the biggest disaster, and then he knows that if he gets to his friends and says, oh, my daughter is not married at whatever age, and then his friends put pressure on your father, because he lives in his own ecosystem. So you have really to tell your father, sometimes that you tell people that helps them, that you really say, that I know you will be exposed to a lot of pressure because of my decision. And I hope that you are strong enough to kind of endure this. Even by telling people, I hope you are strong enough, you prepare him what is coming. So he's not unprepared. And obviously, if you tell him, Dad, I hope that you are strong enough, he goes in this situation already with a preset mindset, because if he goes unprepared in a situation, then it kind of catches him cold. But if he goes there with the thing, I'm already thinking about it, if I'm strong enough to do that, that's a totally different ballgame. This I mean with prepare other people's comfort zone. So communication is key, but also challenging the others, that you tell them, that you are uncomfortable with me becoming a doctor is actually your problem, because you live in another ecosystem. You live in a very closed mind cage, and all your friends and family around you are in the same mind cage. So are you the guy who can protect me from their others' mind cage, or can you just let me be and just bear what they do with you? So there's communication, but it comes back to empathy. It's a lot of emotions which you have to rationalize.
Absolutely. There's a lot of emotions that we have to rationalize. There's a lot of pushing and fighting our way through that we are doing. And I salute women when we do that, when we go through all these processes. And Similarly, these are the challenges that begin from home. And then there's another set of challenges that's waiting for you at the workplace. When you start doing something successful, when you start doing something good and you're on the road to becoming a leadership model. Claudinia, here I'd like to ask you that what do you think are, what do you usually hear from women? What are the challenges that they face in while going on this roadmap of leadership? And how do you think that we can handle those?
Thanks, Hira. So many challenges, and these vary, according to individuals. It varies according to people's unique circumstances, the organizations they work in, even the cultures that they come from, or they operate in. But some things tend to be consistent, and some of the challenges that I've experienced myself as a woman in leadership, as well as where I've supported other women, either as colleagues or as a coaching partnership. They include, very importantly, we spoke about that cultural and societal pressure to manage both the bulk of the family responsibilities as well as a career, and just how hard that is to do. There's the dearth of opportunities that are there. So again, I've just been reading up this weekend. It's weekend for us. I'm not sure whether it is there as well. It's weekend for us here in Abu Dhabi. And I was reading last weekend and this weekend just how much research there is out there now that show that women demonstrate effective leadership, that the women in leadership right now in senior positions are effective.
Sorry, Claudinia, I think we've lost you for a moment there again. Oh, such a wonderful conversation going on. But this is the reality, ladies and gentlemen. The boon and the bane of using technology.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Just let me know and I'll keep going. So the availability of positions to women is a challenge out there right now. When positions become available, women are not the first people that are being thought of. We are frequently subjected to various stereotypes and prejudices. And again, this is very cultural, but in general, there are certain assumptions that are made about what women are good at, what women should do, how women should behave, and what value they can add. A big challenge we face is not having very few professional female role models out there. It makes it hard to see the road to the top when you don't see someone else that looks like you there. When we are role models, when we are in those senior positions, we face higher levels of scrutiny than our male counterparts. People tend to be much harder on female leaders in 360 feedback processes than they are on male counterparts. And then something which is really, really close to my heart, because this comes up so often in coaching relationships, is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a huge challenge for women. It's a challenge for everybody. Men and women experience it, but women tend to experience it more frequently and to a greater extent. And so those are the more consistent challenges that are out there. And all of those lead to other challenges. In terms of dealing with those or addressing those challenges, they vary. I think that's a whole separate call, and I don't want to take up too much time. But in terms of the stereotypes and the prejudices, in terms of the level of scrutiny that we face, the exclusion from opportunities, those are things that are bigger than just women and individuals. Those are things where the organization and society needs to put different policies in place and put different measures and resources in place. From an individual point of view, what women can do when they're facing those particular challenges is make sure that we are conscious of the value we add. And Ida spoke about this before, that we are measuring our success by our measures, that we're able to articulate those very clearly. And that we're able to, the only way to overcome stereotypes and prejudices is to actually articulate when you are It's to challenge people when they're making those assumptions about you and calling out those behavior so that it doesn't stay on the record that what they're saying is the truth. And so that,
Absolutely.
and when you're contributing the value is to actually articulate that value so that it's on the record. This is what I did. We shy back from that as women. It's not something we naturally do, is to position what we've done and what we've contributed and what we achieved. That comes much more naturally because of how we're socialized to men. But as women, if we're going to overcome the stereotypes and prejudices, we are going to need to be our own best marketers. In order to do that, though, we need to overcome imposter syndrome, which is a huge topic and a huge challenge in and of itself.
Absolutely. It's something that I would love to really talk about in detail with you someday as well, Claudinia, because we were talking about it yesterday, that it's the element that we discussed, that we got there by luck. We don't have
Yes.
that kind of belief in ourselves,
Yes.
This just must have happened because of something else. I must have gotten lucky, blah blah blah. We're still very unsure of ourselves, and that is projected forward. And I think that people do pick up on those things, right?
Absolutely. And it actually hinders our ability to contribute, and it hinders our ability to advance. I always say that we need to be very clear on the fact that imposter syndrome is a sequence of irrational thoughts that produces a negative soundtrack. No one else hears it. We're the only ones that hear it. So the soundtrack is in our head. So we believe we're not competent and we're not enough and we've only been lucky and our success so far is a fluke or an accident or as a result of people liking me or me being good at manipulating people. And so we believe that at any time someone's going to realize I've been faking it and I'm going to be fired or demoted or humiliated. But the reason I say it's irrational, because we usually believe these things despite the very clear evidence that we are competent, that we have earned our accomplishments, and we negate our hard work and our talent. And the reality is that the path to your success, it's highly unlikely that that was an accident. It's highly unlikely that people are consistently successful because of other people's mistakes in judging them or assessing their performance. And no one is going to invest in a relationship in you that supports your advancement unless there's a cause for them to do so, which means you must have contributed, you must have performed. So in terms of imposter syndrome, it's hard work to overcome it, and it comes in waves. But I always say, and this is to all leaders, not just to women, have a portfolio of work. Because when the thoughts of I feel like I'm unlucky or I feel like I'm faking it, those are thoughts and feelings. I always say to people I coach, no, tell me what is true. Tell me what is real. And because it's so hard, you achieved this, you led that project, this was the outcome of the project, this was the feedback you got from not just one person, but from people over the space of 5 years. They gave you the same feedback that this is a strength. So I ask people to focus on what's real and what's true. And the best way to remind yourself of what's real and what's true is to keep a portfolio of work. And this can be an online Word document, it can be an Excel spreadsheet, it can be a folder with hard copies. But every bit of feedback that you get, every indication of your success that you get, you put into that file. You copy and paste into that Word document. You put into that folder so that you're constantly accumulating a record of what is true and what is real about your own performance. Because so often that negative soundtrack creates that irrational framework of imposter syndrome. And the only way to combat it is with the truth. So build your folder.
Absolutely. That's such an important thing. And thank you for that wonderful tip. That day I was reading a book and I was shocked that one of very famous Hollywood actress, I'm forgetting her name right now, she talked about imposter syndrome. And she thought that all these amazing movies she was doing was just a fluke of luck, And that also connects with the element of validation. I think women need and they require a lot of validation from time to time. And I think keeping the track on your portfolio is such a great tip, because it's all black and white. It's written there. This is what you've done. This is what you have achieved. Thank you so much for sharing this amazing tip. I've noted it down for myself as well. From here, I'll jump back to Ida, and I want to know that because we are talking about women transitioning into leadership, the challenges that we are facing, coming out of the imposter syndrome, and then obviously heading towards a positive path. What happens when you do transition into a leader and you come up to a post? There are times when women may not like this question necessarily, but this truly happens. There are two extremes that they end up in. Either they're too empathetic or they become too fierce and too difficult for their peers and for their juniors as well. And what happens in this time is that we look up to women leaders for the reason that we want them to create that space for other women to be part of it. But sometimes that doesn't really entirely happen. So how do you control this phase where you don't become a boss, where you're not too harsh on your team members? You're empathetic, yet you maintain your leadership stance.
I think first is there is not the leader and there is not the team. The thing is you have, a leader has to have certain traits. So it's like he needs to be creative, it needs to be motivational, must be servant, must be empathetic. Then you have must have ability to build teams, to read people, needs to have a feeling for risk and failure. So these are traits, and the best leader have these traits, all the traits, to 100%, and they tone the percentage down as the team needed. So you might have a team which needs a strong leadership and not a lot of creativity. For example, if I would lead a SEAL 6 team, there is no room for creativity. I tell them to jump now, and I don't have a discussion that somebody asks me, do you mean now? If I tell him jump now, I mean now. So it's like, and then so you have to question yourself, what is the task and what is the team I need for the task? And the other thing is the team something you can select yourself, or are you giving it a team? And then you have to look at the team, because you might have gotten a toxic team, and leadership is also to look at the people and see who is crucial for the task, and is this person maybe too toxic, because then you need to exchange people. Because leadership is also going back to your boss and say, you know what, this is the team, this is a problem, these are the 3 solutions for the problem. Your boss doesn't want to see you, that you come back and said, Houston, I have a problem. This is not leadership. I have a problem and these are the 3 solutions. And to be able to communicate the problem in a short way without too many emotions, like, this guy doesn't report when I ask him to report, blah, 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 blah. Don't whine, state a fact. This is because you must put yourself in the shoes of your boss, because your boss puts you in this position because he believes you can do that. So don't go back to your boss and prove him wrong. This is not what he wants to hear. And the other thing is also with what a lot of persons, not just women, they struggle with leadership, that they are afraid to say, I don't know. It's not about knowing the answer. It's about how fast and good you are in finding the answer. This is what makes you special, not knowing everything. Nobody knows everything. And not being afraid to say, I don't know, and I need to find out. But you have to look at the same when people come to you with a task. I would never take on a team which I haven't had the chance to sit down and talk with them. And so the task is easy. You can access the task, like, you have a team, you have this background, you can do the task. But then what is with the team? The people who have to carry on the task. And then also communication within the team, that they know that you are not afraid of consequences. I think nobody in my teams ever was in any doubt that I have no qualms to take somebody out of the game. And then they also knew that I'm right behind them all the time. But if somebody started playing games, they really knew that I was not afraid in calling them out and be more aggressive in playing games that they are. So that is, so I think not to being afraid to it's actually like raising children. If you raise your children, say, if you do this, this is the consequence. So if you kind of always threaten the consequence and never there is a consequence, obviously your kids do whatever they want. They don't take you serious. So you also have to have a very good feeling for consequences, because the second you say this is the consequence, you have You have to be able to execute. And there's also no harm in going to your boss and tell him, you know what, I know I can do the task. I think I'm not good for the team, because maybe the team might be too creative and you are not creative enough, or the team might be too, so there might be something which you don't have. And this is what I mean. You have all these leadership traits, but you have to know to what percentage you have the traits. And then you have to know, if you grow as a leader, what traits you can grow. You know, you could, for example, your self-confidence is a leadership trait. So not being arrogantly self-confident, but being realistically self-confident. There's a difference between that. Humility is good, but too humble is super bad, because you know, the realistic approach in that, it's the same like you know, you have some body language traits. You know, for example, you come from a culture where you don't look people in the eye. That doesn't work for leadership, because you can only read people if you look them in the eye. So in the eyes is the story. If you can't do this, that's a problem. So you either fix it or you are not really a strong leader. And leadership is not about big teams and big successes, whatever. Leadership is getting the task done with the resources, meaning people you have. And coming back to baking the cake, you know, it's the same. You know, to make a good cake, then you lead yourself to make a good cake. There are not many people you need to instruct how to do with the flour. So it's not about the thing being a leader. You know, actually, sometimes when I coach some people, I really tell them, you know what, you're not a good leader, but you're a very good team member. And there's a nice saying from Leonard Bernstein when it comes to orchestras. He was one asked, what makes up the superb orchestra? And they said the superb orchestra is not made up by the first violin. It's always the second violin, because the second violin makes the harmony in the orchestra. Screw the first violin if your second violin is the important thing. So some persons who fight to be a leader and seen as a leader, whatever, they are very good in the second line. And for example, I myself, when it comes to a lot of this important stuff, I enjoy being in the second line and pulling the strings. And then if somebody gets the medal, I sit in the last row and I enjoy it. I don't need to be on stage to get the medal. That's not what I want. It's not what I am. It's not what I care about. I care about really pulling the strings and really know what's going on. I don't need to be on front stage. It's like so you need to decide for yourself. Maybe you're not a good leader, and a good leader is whatever a good leader is. But maybe you are a super team member. You know, look at all the CEOs. They won't survive without their secretaries. It's like, you know, a good secretary organizes their life, so they will be efficient. So you might be a good secretary, and this is fine. So, you know, be careful with the expectations and the praise, and we cannot all be queens, you know, but it doesn't mean that we are not important.
Right.
And cannot make a contribution. So it's like the contribution is the thing. And the enjoyment you take out of that, you know, the enthusiasm for the work that you say, you know, I really enjoy doing this task. And sometimes, you know, when you're in a job, when I was with Medtronic, you know, my boss always stole my praise. You know, I did the work, he did the presentation, and they was always complimented about his fantastic graphics. And he never said once, oh, I have no clue how to do that. Ida done. It's like, you know, I could then run around and say, you know what, by the way, I want to tell everybody, actually, I did the graphics. No, I don't sleep so long, because there was at one point when somebody wanted a graphic from me and I delivered the graphic to the top boss and they said, oh, you can do this graphic. I said, yeah, I do them all the time. He understands the message. It's like, your time will come.
Wow. I think you addresses something really important, because I think a lot of people feel that way, that they do, and you know, the credit goes here and they're very uncomfortable with it. And I think you've addressed it beautifully. And you also picked out something that I wanted to talk about, body language, putting your word through. And I would like Claudinia as well, both of you. I mean, this question is open for the two of you. That women are not generally, and I would say generally, because we're passing a statement I don't mean all women, but a lot of women go through this thing. They have a tough time putting their word forward that they need a raise, in their pay because they know their worth. And they have a tough time putting that across. So how can we help these women, give some useful tips or some idea of what's the best way in terms of your body language, how to put this thing forth, and have the belief above all that you're absolutely worth that praise, you're absolutely worth demanding what your true worth is.
I think, Hira, if it is okay with me going ahead, for me, it's body language is important. I think it starts before even the conversation of asking for the promotion and the raise. The first thing for me, the first step for anybody should be research. If it's a promotion I'm going for, have I looked at the job spec or the job description or the profile for that role to ensure that I meet the requirements for that role? And if I do, can I articulate that to say, these are the job requirements, the job specific one, and then the behavioral competencies, and this is how I meet them, how I've demonstrated them in my current role already. If it's a raise, have you done the research? What is this job worth in this organization? What is the range? If that information is not available, because it's not always available or accessible to everyone in the organization, what is this job worth in the market? Because if you're going to say, I want a raise, you can't just say, oh, I want an increase. You need to be able to say, well, this is what this job's worth, and therefore this is what the value that I add in this job. So that research, and included in that research should be benchmarking. If you're aware what other people in the market or the organization is paid, then you should present that information where you have it and where it's appropriate. And I think then you need to prepare for the organization, for the conversation. And this is where that portfolio of work is invaluable. Because if you have been keeping track of the feedback that you've gotten from clients or customers or colleagues or leaders, or comments from people, or actual reports with data that provides evidence of your contributions, that's not difficult to say, this is why I need this presentation, this is how I meet the job requirements, or this is why I deserve this raise, this is how I exceed the current expectations of this role. And then when you have that, when you've done the research and you've done the preparation, you've got a portfolio of work to present, your body language is a lot easier to step into a posture of confidence than if you didn't have that backing you. So once you have that information, then it's a matter of, before you go into that discussion, to define, how do I want to show up in this conversation? How do I want this person to read my behavior? Do I want them to read me as, oh, please, can I have this promotion? Or do they want me to say, I deserve this promotion, I deserve this increase? So when you have that backup of the information, it'll automatically change your body language. And I think what's important about body language is to be really intentional about it, with the understanding that you're doing it because body language is proven to communicate more than 70% of the message compared to your verbals. So your body language is your biggest tool in communication, much more than any words you can say. How you present yourself is going to speak a lot more. So be intentional about how you embody your message when you show up. And I advise clients, I offer myself as a sounding board, or I tell them to ask someone who's trusted to them and who can give them feedback. Practice. If you're not comfortable embodying an assertive and a confident body language, and non-verbals, a confident way of speaking, practice with someone. Let them give you feedback. Let them give you tips before you go into those conversations. It adds to your confidence, which once again adds to how you show up. And then absolutely, once you've practiced and you have your portfolio of work and you've done your research and you're prepared, your chances of success are much, much higher than if you had gone in unprepared.
Great. Thank you so much for these wonderful tips. I hope that all those people who are listening to us have heard this. You know, this is such an amazing topic. It's such a vast topic that it's endless. We could go on and on. I have so many things that I still would have loved to discuss, but I've just had a glance at the clock and we are coming. We sort of almost ended our session. But before we sign off for today, we have a few questions from our audience and shared with me over here. I'll just quickly go through them. One question is that I think the most significant barrier for women leaders is the way our society has wired us in gendered roles. It is difficult for men to accept women as their boss or someone in a high position of authority. At the same time, sometimes women don't feel efficacious enough to lead men. They need a male validation for the decisions they are taking. Another question is, what do you think is the best way to develop such attitude, which Ida is referring to? Is it the good schooling, social construct, parents, or what? Should I go on with the questions, or would you like to quickly just in bullet points answer them? I feel that some of them have already been addressed.
Yeah, you lead it, so we can. Shall I address this?
If you could just quickly just give us a few pointers. You know, the previous one where she said that the acceptance of having women in leadership positions by men. This is something that we were discussing yesterday as well.
Yeah. I think that comes back to the comfort zone. So men are not comfortable to have a female boss because they think if they would tell their peers that they have a female boss, they would be less manly. So, it's I think straightforward. If you know about these feelings, then express the feelings that you know that they have the feelings, because the second sometimes you express things, you realize how stupid it is. It's like, if you have a man, you really tell them, is it really, this is what you feel, and I can see that. So maybe it's your acceptance, and have an open conversation. If you are a boss, and I had this conversation that you really sit down and said, let's sit down. You have a problem. You have a problem first. You have a problem, or we have a problem. So is the problem because you can't accept me as a woman, because you don't accept me as a woman, because you think it's against your perceptive comfort zone as a man? So and really address it. So and the more you can address it, and the more rational you can address it without kind of bringing in emotions, the more you kind of can tone it down. And sometimes it's good when it comes to acceptance problems that you tell people, you know what, I know that you are misbehaving, and there's a certain time, there's a certain range. I accept that because maybe you are not mature enough. It's also it's a way to talk to people, and sometimes also tell you what you are expressing here is a lack of maturity, and I see this lack of maturity. Can I help you? So it's like, and leadership is it's always also growth for everybody, and growth is painful. It's like it is not conflict free. So it is accept the pain as part of the game, like failure.
The next question is also pertaining to organizations. That do they think that businesses consider women employees as high turnover risk, as they feel that women may leave due to marriage, pregnancy, spouse, family relocation, etc. That happens to a lot of women in Pakistan who enter the workforce and leave because there's a lot of pressure from home. And again, I think a lot of it has got to do with us setting our barriers. What else would you like to add to that?
It's true. Have you ever run a company? If you have a company, you have to pay the paychecks. Women are per se a higher risk because they get pregnant, yes, and they have children. But the other thing is, I find that women who become mothers are super organizers. They can handle such a workload. So see the positive thing of becoming a parent. It's not just mother, also men who become a parent grow as a person, and so you get more mature workforce. And yes, there might be a slight because when they are pregnant and the baby comes, they might not be able to work, but this is a kind of also as an employer, also you have to look at it from a fresh point of view. So it's not just the numbers that they might miss 6 weeks of work, but you get you get more committed workers, you know, you get more resilient workers, and you get workers who are more mature by the process of becoming parent. And everybody who became a parent, I know nobody who doesn't say, you know, with big parenthood, I matured, I changed, I became a better person. So what is the drama with parenthood? It's a way of, you know, see it. That is what I tell people I coach. Say, you know, don't see it as a risk that they are pregnant. See it actually like a management course. You know, take pregnancy in the same level as a management course. It's the same thing. It's cheaper actually. You don't send them away and pay $10,000 for them to have a management course. It's a management course. It's life skills.
Absolutely.
You need life skills as a manager. So it's like, or as a person who works. That's fine.
You know, one of my favorite stories is by Reese Witherspoon at some, she's the actress, American actress, at some awards evening. She told a story about how, you know, in the movies they portray women, and this ties back to a question someone asked in the chat box about how the media portrays women. And she said, so often in these movies, you know, something dangerous will happen, and the actress who is along with the male star, so often the woman is portrayed as saying, oh, what do we do now? And waiting for leadership from the man. But if you think about it, if you put a woman in a dangerous situation or a crisis situation, a woman is more likely to grab one child under the arm, throw another child on the back, hold one like a ball under the arm, push one in a stroller, and is out of there saying, I'm going to solve this problem. And they get it done while they're juggling all of these priorities. Women are by nature crisis solvers.
Yeah.
And we have, and we need to, that is some of the authenticity that we need to step into. And so often I've worked with male leaders where I have to help them understand that those skills are not dulled down because of parenting or because someone has a baby. They're actually sharpened, they're heightened, because that kind of multitasking and crisis management is just part of hands-on parenting. And so I think we need to step into that authenticity, and people that have those stereotypes or assumptions about women need to bear that in mind. And organizations that have invested in flexible working practices, which say, okay, so someone's going to be on maternity leave. I need someone to caretake for a few months while that person is off, which is what would you do if that person left the organization anyway? You'd have to find someone else. So you find someone to place hold for a while. When they come back, you allow for some flexible working so that they can transition in a healthy and a way that protects the well-being of themselves and their child back into the workplace. And what you have at the end of that is someone who is so committed and so engaged to the organization that supports them through that period of transition. And I can say that as someone who had that kind of support and had that transition, as well as seeing what happened when the organization didn't do that. So I've seen it from all angles. And so I recommend that leaders look at that, and where it has been done, even as a pilot or a trial, the evidence in favor of flexible work practices that support both women and men who have family responsibilities. And we see it now with organizations that support that with COVID-19, remote working and flexible working practices. The return on that investment cannot even be measured in money that you've invested.
Wow.
And so we need to get that message across to both individuals and team leaders and organizations.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing this out. Brilliant. There's another quick question. There are many gender barriers that women are, and a lot of women are talking about harassment at workplaces. This is something that we were talking about yesterday as well, that sort of holds them back. How can we best address this? There are many gender barriers women are facing, like challenging gender inequality, sexism, lack of support, and communication barriers. And they have also addressed, I have lost that question somewhere. They were talking about harassment at workplaces, that this also sort of slows them down while working up the ladder to leadership.
Yeah, but the thing, harassment is the same. You know, the harassment is something. If you for example see certain characteristics of women, so there, it's not that I have not been harassed. The question is how you react to the harassment. So it's like, and sometimes some there are, I think, a lot of men who wouldn't dare to harass me. So it's like, it's a certain distance, and there are some men who dare to harass everybody because they so harassment is really to I think the first thing is to be aware that's not your fault. It sounds stupid, but some women think maybe I haven't smiled too much or whatever. Harassment is not your fault, because just because somebody smiles doesn't mean that you can assume. So that is the failure is on the side whoever harasses, and there are also men who are harassed. So it's like it's I think we should leave this gender a bit, because harassment is, and it's a kind of bullying, and it's the same to. And I told the example yesterday when my last harassment is not so far away, and so what I did, so I actually said, I don't stand for that, I don't want this. But I went back to this person later and said, you know what, I thought about what you did, and I thought about if I was wrong, and I talked with this and this and this and this and this people about what you have done. And he was totally shocked. He said, you did talk, I said, yes, and I said your name. And all of them agreed you were wrong. He was kind of shocked because I called it out in the open, and I really told him, you know what, I talked with this and this person. I told them the names about what you have done. So and it takes a certain courage. That is, and this is what Claudinia said. There's a certain courage, but it's also courage comes with that you know what's right and wrong and what are your values. And sometimes in a company, it's a company culture. And sometimes you are in a company culture, which the company culture is actually not preventing harassment. And this is something management needs to be aware of. And there needs to be a company culture which comes from the top. And this shows good leadership, that you have to go to the leaders and tell them, you know what, and not the tears and Kleenex thing. It's really going this and saying, you know what, this person has done this. And this is, I interpret it as harassment, and I'm the woman. And if I tell you that I'm harassed by that, and it is not just, touching or words, it's something, and then you have to go to leadership and say, you tell me if you stand for that, because I need to know your values, because I need to know the culture, and you set the culture in this company. So call them out in a bigger scale. And it's the same. And harassment is not just it happens in everywhere. It happens also in families. It's the same. A lot of families have harassment and worse in the families where everybody knows and nobody talks about it. The second you start talk about it, you have to put it in their face. They cannot put it under the carpet any longer. They can't. They can't say nobody told me, so it has not happened, though everybody knows. It's also the same. It's a bad behavior of some family members. Some family members get away with it. Nobody calls them out. It's a way of leadership and starting doing it. The way is how you do it. That is the trick.
I think Maruk was asking a similar question, that harassment comes with power dynamics and comes from your seniors. And I think it's applicable to all. Isn't that, Ida? The approach, how you do it. It's applicable to everybody. I think it's time that we stop fearing anybody, be it senior or junior. There's another question. I just want to, before I ask you that question, I know that we've gone a little above time. Are you comfortable with that, both of you, Ida and Claudinia? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I'm assuming that Amna and British Council is all right with it too. So.
Yes, it's really interesting conversation. Everyone is liking this, and we can see the audience engagement is really good. We can continue conversation for more minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. There's another question that we got from a gentleman who is saying that we are talking about women empowerment in this part of the world, generally in South Asia and especially in Pakistan. Is it possible, or how essential is it for women to have their economic empowerment to ensure that they remain relevant, needed, their presence or their voice be heard and respected in home, society, and the corporate world? It's a bit of a big question, but it's interesting.
I think it's a good question, and it is a big question. And I think for me, if we ask, is it necessary, or how necessary is it, or how critical it is, the minute that we ask that question, we should be saying, what do we lose if we don't have it? Because if we look at what do we have if we don't have women held in respect, at different levels of society and in different areas of society. What do we have to lose if we don't have women in leadership roles? What do we have to lose if we don't have inclusive financial inclusion and financial empowerment of women? We've seen that there's an impact on the individual. We've seen that there's an impact on teams and on organizations. We've seen that there's an impact on the economy of a country. Never mind the social effects in a society when you keep people oppressed, when you keep people excluded, when there are certain people considered less than, or certain people adding less value. In every area of our existence, we have things to lose if we don't have every person of every characteristic, of every different description represented, enabled, equipped with a voice and contributing to their full potential. And so for me, the big question is, what do we have to lose if we don't have those things? A great deal.
Yeah.
And it's also the one part he said is a financial independence. So, that is, I run a family office with only women wealth owners, and money is power, and the control of money is power. So, and the other thing is women are much better in controlling money. And as an example, because women are less prone to, let me say, financially brag. And just an example, when I invest also in companies. So when we have an exit to companies, you have male founders and female founders. Actually, and this is a stereotype, but the stereotype is happened in my life so often. So the male founders, after an exit, after they become financially very viable, they go and buy a Ferrari. They go and show off to their friends with a long night of booze and things we don't want to think about. Women don't do that. So it gives you also a way of how money is used for women. Yes. Actually, women invest in real estate immediately. All of them. Mm-hmm. They put, they put a nest egg away. They shop a little bit, but not really. They do them a favor. So they buy, I don't know, 5 pair of shoes, but they're not the shoes to show them off to their girls, because the other girls they have in their network have 20 pair of shoes. So it's like you cannot compete there. So it's really kind of to treat them to something. So it's like, but financial literacy and keeping your finances in a certain balance. So don't be tempted by buying stuff you buy to impress others. Keep your finances together, become financially viable, and I can really, every couple, do your finances together, even with the perspective that you might separate it away. That'd be just fair that you share it. And don't try to screw one another over, because it's bad karma anyway to screw people over. So it's really this financially and having a look for it, what you spend for what, and not just your financial resources, also your human resources. Who do you spend your time with? Who do you give your love and your attention and your appreciation? It's not just the financial resources. Be careful with your resources. And if you become a person of influence, of financial influence or whatever influence, give it back to people who deserve. Don't kind of keep it to yourself. It's kind of what always makes me, for example, very sad when it comes to certain cultures are these mega weddings where they spend a zillion to invite people they don't even know, to show off that they are viable. I see it in some, even in the Pakistan community, some friends of mine, they actually do now intimate smaller weddings, because they said the wedding is about us. We don't want to meet 500 people we don't know. The wedding is about us. We marry in a smaller scale, and we use actually the money we save for something meaningful. So, and there's a shift happening in a lot of circumstances. Yeah. The thing is, will you lead with the change? Will you follow the change, or will you prevent the change? These are the 3 positions you can be in. And if you say, I'm too limited by my parents, by my culture to lead, but maybe you at least can follow. But the least thing you can do is to not prevent it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Maruk asks a question that what if you're being pushed in your job to be a leader, if that is the vision your organization has for you? I think if she's talking about from somebody's aspect who's probably not very ready to be in that position.
Claudina, if I might answer to that, very simple. In all the positions I have been, and all the promotions I have got, none of them was because I applied. All of them were because people came to me and said, you are the best person for that. And I said the first time it happened to me, I said to my then boss, I'm not sure I can do it. He said, don't do my job. I must be sure that you can do it, not you. And this is actually, and if you are there in a position which is seen as a challenge, you know, it's a big step out of your comfort zone. You go in your learning zone, and a lot of things out there, or most of the things out there, are not rocket science. Right. There's definitely no rocket science. But I don't know what the position is, but it is.
I would tell Mara, please embrace it, because you don't know how many women are there. They want that place, and
the best thing that can happen, you fail, which is fine.
And I think one of the best ways to prevent that, ideally, if you can, or to at least not prevent failure, because that is part of learning, but to set yourself up for success. If you feel like, oh, this is a little bit soon, but I need to take this opportunity because another one might not come along, or because my leaders are really pushing me and I feel an obligation, the best thing to do to look after yourself in that situation is ask for a job description. Go to the job description, identify the gaps. Where are the gaps in terms of what your level of competence around certain areas? Make sure that they're real gaps and not imposter syndrome. So go to a mentor or a sponsor or a trusted advisor and say, so this is the job description. This is where I think I am. Can you confirm where I think I am? So you're building a map. You're building I'm here now. I need to be there. You plot that map and you say, what's the best way for me to address this competence gap? Do I need some training? Do I need to read some? Do I need to take a course? Do I need to shadow someone after hours or as part of this role? Do I need to ask the organization, if they insist on me taking this role, can they pay for this training that I need? Whatever the way is to fill the gap, you follow that roadmap to development till you can say, I have developed the competencies I need to deliver to this role, and I don't need to have this level of insecurity around it. And then once you're in there, remember, build your portfolio of work. So you're reminding yourself of how you're competent.
And you might also ask your management why they put you in this position. Ask them about the why, because it's legitimate. When they want you to do a job, ask them, why do you think I'm the best person? So am I the only option you have? So am I the worst option because I'm the only option? Am I the best option you have? Because it's good to have a conversation with your boss about where you are. It's family businesses have this problem all the time because they promote the sons and the daughters. It's like they don't promote the best person, they promote the most related persons. And this makes it very difficult because your pool of people is very limited because it's just your blood relatives. And so you can't go for the best, you have to take the best of the options you have.
Claudina and Ida, I wanted to ask a question in the middle of our session and I didn't get a chance to do that. And I'm going to ask you now because you just spoke about all these questions that we can ask the organization, a lot of why questions. And again, this brings me to the point that a lot of women re-enter the workforce. They go, they have their families or they have their, their other responsibilities to take care of. After a while, they return to the market and the market doesn't entirely accept them. So what's the best way for them to re-enter the market? How do they answer that, the absence? How do they address that issue?
I think, again, for me, the starting point is always do your research. So if you're about to enter or re-enter the job market, understand in the job market what the expectation is. So if a job might not be the same, jobs, we're always evolving. There's new technologies, there's new processes, there's new innovations. So what a job was 5 years ago when you left the job market might not be the same as what it is now. So the first thing to do is do research. So this is where the job is right now. Look at job descriptions online. Go to LinkedIn. Go to the job sites. Have a look at what they put in there as these. This is what the job is now in terms of responsibilities and tasks, and this is what they need now in terms of requirements for the job. And then you're going to do, okay, so I now need training on this software. Or in terms of leadership, this is now the kind of leadership style or communication style they need. Or this is the particular area of expertise that's a gap for me. So then you go and you build that competence so that you know as best as you can do that job. Then you need to also, when you are preparing for those questions of, so you've been out of the job market for X amount of time. You have not been laying on your bed for the past 3 years or 2 years or 5 years. You need to go and look in that time that you've not been in the formal area, the formal employment market. What have you done that demonstrates the competencies in that job profile or that job spec? Whether it is budgeting around the home, whether it is leadership positions, because in your social organization or there's a volunteer organization where you contributed, you were in a leadership position or you supported, whatever it might be, go and use real life tasks that we're involved in all the time, where we're problem solving, where we're applying judgment, where we're managing finances, where we're managing processes, where we're convening people and helping them to collaborate. That can happen right in the home. Make sure you can link that and that you can articulate how that talks to the requirements of the job so that you're prepared for it. And then also understand what's your unique selling point. What is it that you bring to this job that isn't necessarily on the job description? And often that comes from life experience because you have a unique perspective and a unique point of view. And then tailor your CV. Tailor your CV. You're not, if you're about to enter the job market, do not send the same CV out to everyone. Tailor your CV to the specific requirements of the job description. Tailor your cover letter as well, so that you're showing how they have a problem. That's why they're recruiting. How are you the best person to solve that problem? And make sure that your CV and your cover letter articulates this. And again, be very, very conscious and aware of imposter syndrome. A stat that's very important, and a stat that hasn't changed in the past 5 years, is the fact that men, on average, tend to apply for jobs when they meet only 60% of criteria. Women, on the other hand, will only apply for a job once we are sure we meet 100% of that job requirements. Now, you need to be conscious, and this is where there's some of that risk-taking that Ida was talking about, and the courage that I referenced earlier, where you're going to need to step out of that comfort zone and say, I'm not sure I can do that one part of the job, but I can do all these other jobs. Apply for the job. Apply for the job, because virtually no candidate for position has 100% of the qualifications anyway. So if men are getting the jobs because they apply when they meet 60% of the criteria, you can apply for the job if you don't meet full criteria either. So again, look over your portfolio of work, or your portfolio, your ability to demonstrate this is how I meet the requirements of the job. Tailor your CV to that job and walk in with confidence that your time has not been wasted. In this time when you are not in formal employment, you were building competence.
Great.
And also use your time, this is kind of, especially today, my mother, or everybody's mother on the call maybe, had it more difficult. Today, with all the IT possibilities we have, if you have your child, you have every day minimum 30 minutes to kind of broaden your spectrum. You could make your goal. You have 4 years at home, and you can say, in the first year, I watch each and every TED Talk out there. This is simple, so you can consume information, and there are a lot of stuff in the internet where you can say, you can go to Khan Academy, and you can. I enjoy Khan Academy because it might be for students in the lower grade, but I forgot a lot of the stuff, like a calculation of vectors. I did this in 8th grade. If you let me do this today, I would fail. And I enjoy go to Khan Academy and have a 30-minute session about vector. So don't have it all focused. Just keep your mind, refresh your mind every day with something. Just keep your mind fresh and go every day to bed and say, I learned this little piece. Like apples don't grow in Ghana because the soil in Ghana is too hot. You know, it might be useless knowledge, but this useless knowledge gives you a certain scope. Be in contact with people. Don't be just in contact with mothers. And if you are just in contact with mothers, then talk about the jobs you had, not about nappies and whatever. You know, make conscious conversation with mothers. Stay in contact with your company and tell them that you could, maybe for free, coach people who come to the company. You can say, you know what, I offer you, because if you coach them, you get information from the company. Coaching is never a one-way street. You always get information. You could say, you know, I have 3 hours per week. I offer you for free for coaching new employees. You know, because I did the trade, and by that you stay in the awareness set. So you keep yourself confident that you're not just because I think being a mother I'm a mother, so it's kind of tough job. But being, like I perceive, just a mother. And you have also, what is the nice thing with that, then it comes, what is often with relationships, is if somebody is just the mother and somebody is just in the workforce, you lose a little bit topics to talk about. So you keep yourself also fresh for your spouse, because, you know, nobody wants to come home and say, you know what, this is whatever, I know, but saying, you know, I have seen this interesting thing on TED. Have you ever thought about this, honey? You know, I have seen, you know, it keeps the conversation going. You know, it keeps a certain mind growing, and you can do a lot. You can do a dance class, do a singing course, do something, but not always focus on the job, on personal development. You know, if you can't swim, learn swimming. It is good for self-confidence, because
yes,
if you,
absolutely.
So this is what you can do.
Thank you.
Also be
Thank
aware
so
there are passive sources of information, because I remember how taxing it was to be a new mom with a baby, and how much brain space that takes up. So look for passive ways to keep information coming your way. So by that, I mean on social media, instead of just focusing on Facebook or Snapchat and, you know, having pictures of the baby and whatnot, go on Twitter, even on Facebook. Look for people that are doing the jobs that you want to do when you go back to the workplace. Follow them, so that your feed is filled up on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. Your feed is filled up with little snapshots of what people in that industry, in that role, are talking about. Not only does that mean every time you go on social media, you know, when you're burping the baby, or when you have a quick moment when they're having a nap, or you're kind of cuddling them, and you have your phone anyway, let's call a spade a shovel, you have your phone anyway. At least then you're getting a snapshot of the language that's used, what are the new things that are happening, what's the ongoing trends, so that when you go back to enter the workforce, you can say, I am up to date, I understand that language, I know what the latest trends and innovations are. And you can say to an interviewer, actually, I've been very intentional about keeping my professional competence and expertise and knowledge up to date while I've been on my career break. So look for those passive sources of information.
Yeah. Thank you, Claudinia and Ida. Thank you very much. Our time is almost, we've kind of crossed it, so I'm just going to wrap it up for today. I would like to really thank the audience for being here with us. For the last bit, I'm going to just say quick 3 takeaways that carve your path, understand that what you want to do and where you want to reach. You're not alone. You're not the only one. Look for mentors and coaches who support you. Glass ceilings are very real. The barriers are very much there, but you have the you have the confidence. You have this. Sorry, I can hear myself. That's why I'm breaking up a bit. You have the confidence. You have the strength to work out your strategies to complete them. And men and women should be on equal footing in every sphere of life, including workplaces. Organizations especially need to understand that more diversity at the top leads to better decision making and better business outcomes. And with this, we would like to thank the British Council as well, because we know that they strongly believe in gender equality and in the balance and in women empowerment. And we are glad that we did this session with them today. They have women who are professional from all parts of, you know, different sectors, from creative to artists, and everybody working with them. And we're very glad and very, very thankful above all to our 2 panelists for today, Ida Beerhalter and Claudinia Harper. Thank you for a wonderful session for tonight. It's been amazing. I've learned so much, and I'm sure that all of the participants have done the same thing.
I've learned so much too. Thank you so much for organizing Amna and Hira. And my only regret is I didn't get to hear more or get to be able to, have a two-way conversation with the audience, because you should know, because I know that you have so much wisdom and strength that sits inside you. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I've learned so much from everyone. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
My side. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much, Hira, for collaborating with British Council and introducing a great panel of the speaker. They have shared really great insights, and it's a kind of like a motivational conversation for all the women who have participated in today's conversation. You can see the chat box. They are interacting a lot. They're sharing their challenges and how they have overcome. And it's really amazing that even I have picked a lot of things that I can implement in my career. And thank you so much for having this amazing conversation, Ada and Claudinia. I'm really glad that I got a chance to interact with you both, and especially Hira for collaborating with British Council. I'm so happy that I got a chance to network with you all. And thank you so much. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great evening, and to everybody who's having a weekend, enjoy yourselves.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.